prophet wondering what is to come. All is already written.
Now that is quite an intro if you're interested in Total War Warhammer 3. I know I most certainly am, and I hope you are too. Hello and welcome everybody, this is the HeirofCarthage, and indeed we are in Total War Warhammer 3 today. And I get the privilege of showing you some early access gameplay. This was provided to me by the Creative Assembly. And so this is not me playing, this is one of their employees playing. It was provided to us out of kindness to be able to start showing you all what the game looks like. This is still a development in progress, so as you watch that, bear that in mind. So what we're going to be watching today is a minor settlement battle where the Ogres are defending and the player is playing as the armies of Tzeentch. This is a little bit of a cinematic view of what you're going to see, but here's the order in which we're going to take care of business. I'm going to start things off by running through a video that details out the roster for Tzeentch so that you can see all the units and get more familiar with them. And then I'm going to swap over to a video where you're going to actually see the player playing and you'll get a feel for what the game is like. And then at the end, I may just throw in some more of the eye candy here from the cinematic version, just so that everybody gets a little bit of what they want. So for those who just want to see how the game plays, for those who want to see nice shots, and for those who want to see the statistics on the units, I should have a little bit of everything there for you. So stay tuned. I'm going to jump right into it. So we're going to begin things on the Tzeentch roster here with the Blue Horrors, which are going to be a base melee infantry that deals both magical and flaming damage. Again, this is a base unit. They can do a little bit of damage with their missiles before entering combat. It is rather limited at 5. But they're going to be a good unit just to get a little bit of damage done. They're going to be a little bit extendable. And they're going to have some cousins here. This is going to be the Pink Horrors. Now, the Pink Horrors are a slightly upgraded version. They're going to do even more missile damage, and they have quite a lot more ammunition. So they can stand off and do a lot more damage than their blue cousins, which will expend their ammunition more quickly and then have to move into melee. Now, the best of the best Pink Horrors are the Exalted Pink Horrors. These guys are going to come with better stats basically across the board. So you can expect better performance across the board with this unit compared to their less exalted pink and blue cousins. So a much tougher unit here altogether. You can see their abilities and stats there. Now coming in next is going to be the Forsaken of Tzeentch. This is going to be similar to the Forsaken that we see with the Warriors of Chaos in the previous games. Pretty solid armor, a decently quick moving unit with a high charge bonus, and basically an excellent damage dealer with Frenzy. These are going to be best used against troops with fairly low armor. Now the next unit up is the Flamers of Tzeentch. These units don't look great for melee, but they look like they can cause some pretty extreme missile damage. You can see their stats there. They have Warp Flame, and I think these units are going to be best used to sit back, spin that ammunition, and cause a ton of damage at relatively short range to the enemy troops up in front of you. And it looks like it's AP damage as well, so these could be some very critical units for clearing out some of the tougher infantry units that may stand in your way. And we're also going to have an Exalted Flamer of Tzeentch. This Flamer is going to have even more damage. It's in a single entity form, roughly the same range and ammunition, but it does extreme damage, and it's just, again, the single entity, and it's obviously going to be a lot stronger in melee than those other Flamers that you saw. Moving on to the Spawn of Tzeentch. That's right, Chaos Spawn or Mac, this time in a Tzeentchy form. They are still going to be an excellent unit. They sunder armor. They're going to do a lot of damage, though they are low armor themselves and will be quite vulnerable to damage, but they are an unbreakable unit, which means that they'll stick in the fight until they are absolutely exterminated. And of course, the Tzeentchian version gets a barrier, like all the other units. Now, next up is going to be the Chaos Furies of Tzeentch. These are going to be a lot like Fellbats, fast-moving, somewhat expendable, but able to do good damage against unarmored skirmishers or the like. Some factions are going to have better range than Tzeentch, and this might be a particularly good unit at tying down some of those while yours are moving closer. Now next up are the Screamers of Tzeentch. These are a little bit harder hitting flying unit. It's a monstrous flying unit. They do magical attacks, and they don't have a lot of defense, but they do really nice AP anti-large damage against cavalry, single entities, and the like. Could be a very useful unit. And next is a unit I'm very excited about. This is the Doom Knights of Tzeentch. Highly armored, well shielded, flying on hoverboards straight out of Back to the Future with a huge charge bonus and a lot of weapon strength. These are going to be high damage dealers, although it's not AP specific. And their brothers on the ground are going to be very similar, except, just slightly different stats, but they're going to fill a very similar role without flying, similar to a lot of Chaos Knights that we've already seen in Total War Warhammer. Anyone need a Soul Grinder? Well, I do think you will. The Soul Grinder is going to be excellent with its missile attacks, limited ammunition, but it's going to be good against large and armored units. It has pretty good armor itself at 90, it has pretty solid melee attack, and looks like it does a lot of armor-piercing weapon damage when it gets into melee. So this is going to be a very nice unit for a bit of multi-purposing. Next up, we've got the Cultist of Tzeentch. This is a Lore of Fire variant here, which is going to be a spellcaster on a Chaos Steed. So just to give you a look, they're going to be a supporting hero, obviously, that you're able to bring and support your armies. And you can see those different abilities down here. Let you all take a look. Hey, and when you head to battle, don't forget your Iridescent Horror of Tzeentch. This is going to be a spellcasting hero unit. It has those cute little horrors up there, but this one's going to be a Lore of Tzeentch spellcaster that also has some interesting missile and melee attacks attached to it, as well as some pretty decent speed, the ability to fly, pretty low armor, so probably a bit squishy if you let that barrier come down and stay in melee for a while. But this could be a very versatile support unit. You're seeing the spells and different abilities go by on the bottom there as well, so definitely going to be an interesting character in this Tzeentchian roster. The Lord of Change, which is an available generic Lord, I believe, for Tzeentch, which is going to be a lighter version of Kairos, Fate Weaver. It's going to have some Lore of Tzeentch attached to it. It's going to be a pretty decent melee combatant. Low armor, though, again, something to be aware of with these units, so you have to watch that barrier and use it well, maybe be charge and retreat. And last and not least, Kairos Fate Weaver here, which we've seen information for this guy already on the blog, so I won't get into too much, but he's obviously a better version of the Lord of Change, and going to be the legendary Lord that we're going to be most familiar with here, obviously with Tzeentch. And pretty cool looking character here as well. I really like it. Anyway, let's jump over to the battle. Now that you've got an idea what the forces of Tzeentch have to offer, let's take a watch at them fighting some ogres, and see what the minor settlement battles look like in Total War Warhammer 3. As a quick reminder, I did not play this footage. Again, this came from our friend Josh over at CA. He's done a very good job in the community program, and it's awesome that he took the time to record all this. This was a ton of work for CA to get this out to all of us content creators, and so they clearly want you all to see the game. And it was also very kind of them to let us be the ones to show it to you. They could have held all this for themselves and showed it off as they wanted, so definitely appreciate it. And again, remember that all of this is a work in development. This is not a final build of the game, and so yes, you may very well see some weird things here and there, and if you do, it is likely because that development is still ongoing. Anyway, so this is a minor settlement battle. You can actually see that the player gets to attack this settlement from all around. Many of you have been asking for this to return, as it was not present in both Total War Warhammer and Total War Warhammer 2. I think this is a good move. It makes these certainly more interesting. The player doesn't have to attack from every angle, but they can if they choose to. When you're looking at this map, obviously it's a much more exaggerated fantasy map, but it reminds me in a lot of ways what they did in Troy with the minor settlement battles, where there's a lot of choke points for a defender to play, and a lot of angles for the attacker to attack from. But in Troy even, I don't think it was a 360-degree field of attack that you had, so this might be an improvement still. So very exciting. Anyway, you can see the ogres are going to be defending this from basically all positions. I don't have a full rundown on every single ogre unit you're going to see. This is a Tzeentch versus ogres battle. Whenever I do these battles, and I will be making multiple videos with these battles, so get subscribed and keep an eye out if you want to see more of this footage. And I'm going to be having it here, and if you want to see more about the ogre roster, that'll be in another video. I just wanted to start off with Tzeentch versus ogres here, because I knew you all would be interested in Tzeentch, you'd be interested in ogres, so I brought these two forward to the forefront. So we're going to see Josh leading his attack here against the settlement. You'll notice up at the top of the screen, there is a capture point, one that's focused on maybe either leadership or victory, I don't know for certain, and then there's 4 that are focused on supplies, so that's where the enemy is going to be getting supplies from in order to build barriers, buildings, and all kinds of other stuff. So you're going to want to focus on maybe taking away those supply points if you're hoping to weaken the enemy army. One thing that's going to be cool in these battles for Tzeentch is that with a lot of flyers on the roster, and with plenty of units dealing pretty good missile damage, it's going to be difficult for someone to defend against Tzeentch unless they both have good range and they have the ability to protect that range with some nice pokey halberds or something here. You're seeing those Doom Knights come in early, causing a lot of damage to some key Ogre units that were near the center. And I'm not surprised. Those were some pretty tanky, hard-hitting units. And again, remember, there's a barrier in effect here, and we'll kind of get to see that at play a little bit. The barrier, I think, lasts for a short time, taking up a certain amount of damage, and I think it gives the player the opportunity to charge in and pull out and maybe try and cycle units. Tzeentch comes across to me now. I don't know for sure because I haven't played them, but they come across to me as a faction where you're going to want to do a lot of hit-and-run attacks in order to maximize the capability of Tzeentch, because a lot of the units look a little squishy, and they might play a bit like Chaos Elves in a way, right? Like kind of a hybrid between, say, Wood Elves and Chaos, where they have plenty of fast-moving units that hit hard, but they might get a little bit squishy if they stick around, right? They just don't have that real strong meat in the melee. And you can see here those units charging in and getting into combat there and just doing some damage early with their ability to fly. And it's really coming in handy. And then you can see a lot of missile cones there. So probably going to move up and try and use those missiles, and that makes sense. You'll want to weaken them down. Those happen to be some man-eater pistols for the Ogres too, so they'll be shooting back. The Ogres aren't going to just sit there and take that. Here we're going to see the Tzeentch forces here engaged with the Ogres trying to break their way in. Ogre troops going to have a lot of monstrous infantry. They're going to be pretty tough, and so it may not always be easy to make that breakthrough. You can see that the Knights of Tzeentch and stuff still making their charges. They're now getting a little bit of infantry support as well. So you can see they're getting some help, but you can see their barriers are gone, and they're starting to take some damage there, those Knights of Tzeentch. They're not going to stick around forever. Now remember though, they did have higher armor. They will stick around longer than others. So you can see some of that melee infantry now being moved in by Josh to come help further support his troops in this fight. I don't know about you all, I am excited to see these coming back. I am definitely excited to see these type of battles. I've actually been playing a fair bit of Troy recently. I've been recording it. In case anybody wants to see it, it's up on my channel on a playlist. So you'll get to feel out what these battles are going to be like. Obviously a lot different because Tzeentch is not a faction in Troy. Look at all those missiles here too. Tzeentch is going to be one of those factions that you don't want to just sit back from unless you also have extremely good range, because look at the damage. Just look at the damage they're putting out there. And there comes Kairos there shooting in some magic missiles as well. Look at them coming over, up and over, getting some good hits. Maybe some more spells being cast there by Kairos. And of course, if you want to see more about the magic, CA did post lore, or blog, sorry, about the lore of magic for the lore of Tzeentch and what it's going to do. So you feel free to check it out. It's a nice support lore for a somewhat aggressive, fast-moving, hard-hitting army. So I do think it's going to be nice. But they have access to more lores of magic as well. But so far, it's actually looking pretty good for Josh. It looks like he's breaking his way in and making his way into some key points, contesting those capture points. He's got one of them taken away, so the supplies are going to be lifted from the defenders, and they won't be able to use them anymore. He's got that iridescent horror there that's doing some support on this side, also with the lore of Tzeentch. Yeah, you can see that iridescent horror being moved around into different support positions. Looks like maybe some Mournfang cavalry that's fighting over there against some horrors. And Mournfang cavalry, if it's anything like Warhammer 2, it's going to be pretty tough for those horrors to overcome by themselves. They'll definitely appreciate the support from their flying, exalted brethren there in the sky. We're going to also be delivering some missiles, but I really like how there's lots of close-range missiles on Tzeentch here. I think this is going to be a really interesting facet to play with, both in campaign and in multiplayer. And then the barrier, like I said, is also going to be very interesting. I feel like that, again, is going to make for a very unique playstyle for Tzeentch, again, in campaign and multiplayer. I'm extremely curious to see how it plays out in multiplayer. Like, for someone who has really high micro, how good a use can they make out of that barrier? And can they really make your life a living heck, you know, with the hit and run of Tzeentch, and then using that barrier effectively? That, I think Tzeentch could lead to some very interesting multiplayer gameplay, as well as being very fun for the casual or rather serious campaign players as well. So I have to say, I've never been terribly excited about a Chaos faction. I just don't vibe with Chaos like a lot of people do. I know Chaos is very popular, amongst those into Total War Warhammer. They're not the faction that I just get real excited about. But Tzeentch really has something special here, in my opinion. He's changed my mind about Chaos, you may even say, if you want to get some lame jokes out there, and I most certainly do. I really am looking forward to playing Tzeentch. I think Tzeentch will be top of my list for Chaos factions, unless I just happen to see something even more interesting out of Nurgle or Slaanesh. But honestly, Nurgle, it's going to be hard for me to want to play them first when there's like pustules and all kinds of other nasty stuff on the battlefield constantly disgusting me. I love that that iridescent horde. It's a really cool unit up there flying around. Tzeentch has some really interesting units and design. It's just so different than anything we've seen from Chaos yet so far, and I really like it. Like all those purpley, pinkish colors. Just has a really interesting aura and vibe to it. So, like I said, I'm very excited for Tzeentch. I know a lot of you out there are excited for Khorne, just for like the pure war and charging, and I get it. I played against the troops of Khorne when I was playing as Kislev, and it was fun. But like I said, as far as interesting me and what to play, I'm definitely far more excited about Tzeentch than I am Khorne. But I think Khorne will have a lot more straightforward type of understanding for players to use, and probably easier to use would be my guess, though I could be wrong. See, Kairos Fateweaver actually taking a little bit of damage over there. His barrier's down. You can see on the unit cards, if you take a look down on the bottom, that'll be really handy for players who are hoping to micro through that. You can actually see that barrier down there and the little blue thing, and you'll know when the barrier's down, and you'll know maybe to charge out and cycle in and alternate. And although the Ogres are few in numbers because of a lot of their stuff being monstrous, they're definitely tough, and you can see them holding out in a very long fight here where the forces of Tzeentch are having to kind of carefully pick their way in and try and do their best damage and be efficient here so that they don't just get clubbed down and eaten, put into the next broth for tomorrow's meal by the Ogres. What'd you all think of that Ogres campaign trailer? That was pretty freaking awesome. I'm really excited for the Ogres in the game too. You know, at least the Ogres are a faction that most of us can identify with, right? We all like to eat too much. We're all probably rocking that dad body, you know, maybe a little softer. But hey, we don't care none. We're the Ogres. We're still going to come fight and have a good time. So I think we can all relate to the Ogres, at least for the most part. I know I sure can. But yeah, this is good stuff. It looks like there's a building being built there by the defense. Yeah, it looks like maybe a tower coming up, so that'll be interesting to see how that play out. We're still getting to see more about Siege. Overall, I like what I'm seeing here in the minor settlement battle. This is obviously a massive improvement over no minor settlements at all in Warhammer 1 and 2, so I feel like that this is a guaranteed step up. And it's even a step up from what they did in Troy. They took some of the map designs and the same ideas, and I think kind of went from there. But this is a 360-degree field of view. You also have the supply mechanic at play, and then you couple that with all the new troops, with all the new lores of magic, and everything else that comes in for Game 3. Look at this. What a nice charge here. Got the Doom Knights of Tzeentch coming in from behind, the infantry up front. Just going to absolutely pin in the Ogres' leaders here and go for the finish. You can see the Ogre's Lord, and it looks like some kind of fire sorcerer, mage, whatever the Ogres call it there, gonna be present. So it looks like maybe moving into the final phase of this battle towards the center of the map. So the forces of Tzeentch have broke their way in, though I can still see a large single entity over there for the Ogres and some infantry moving up. I know I've seen some of the infantry almost looks like little goblins. I haven't gotten a chance to review the Ogres in depth, so if I get some of this wrong or it's a little vague, don't worry about it. I'm gonna have a video soon where it'll be a battle where the players playing as the Ogres, and we'll cover their roster in more detail and you'll get to see it. Like I said, this just so happens to be the one I'm starting with for a few reasons. One, I figured you all would be interested in Tzeentch, Ogres, and minor settlement battles, and this had all three. So I figured we would hit 3 birds with 1 stone here. So it is coming down to the end here. Let's check out this, looks like area of effect army ability going into place here for Tzeentch. Looks like it may have been just a little bit mistimed, but it looks like maybe it's a large area bombardment. It sure is. Here it comes. Did some good damage where it got hits on that unit. That's a really cool bombardment ability. That could be really nice use, especially when fighting in a choke point like this. And here comes a column breath or wind spell here, basically. It's the pendulum. Pendulum is a very nice spell indeed. Boy, look at that. That Ogre Lord. That's Scrag, I believe. He is holding out like a boss. He's taking a beating from all that infantry and Doom Knights, and he just walked away from it, dragging that cauldron. He's just ready for dinner. Ain't worried at all. Looks like we still got that iridescent horror up here supporting the fight. Again, it's going to have Lore of Tzeentch. They're using the magic missiles there to help pull down that Stonehorn monster. And you can see here that the Ogres, though, they're down in their last defense. Scrag is rolling around, and he's being chased by Kairos Fateweaver here, who's hitting him with some magic missiles. I see even more magic. Now remember, magic has been revamped. Again, go check out that blog post on TotalWar.com. You can see all about how they're revamping the magic system, all the new lores of magic. I'm going to be starting a news video about once every couple of weeks, and I'll make sure to mention this type of stuff to you all so you can go see it for yourself if you want. And there is the victory for the forces of Tzeentch, so well fought by our good friend Josh at CA, and I really hope you all enjoyed getting to see this footage. I really want to hear what you have to say about it, to see what you think. And of course, stay tuned here at the end. I've got some cinematic footage of this very same battle that's going to be playing. I'm not going to commentate over it, but if you want to just see some more cinematic views, see a little bit more about Warhammer, you can check it out here. Anyway, hope you all enjoyed this. Make sure after you watch the cinematic part, if you want to, get down in the comments. Tell me what you think. If I earned a like, make sure and hit that like button. And if you want to see more, make sure you hit the subscribe, the bell, and get notified when the next videos are out. So HeirofCarthage signing out. Enjoy the cinematic footage, and I'll see you soon with some more battles in Total War Warhammer 3.